On Saturday, I was on vacation. I'm in the Bahamas, and then wife gets an email from a fraternity brother of mine, Daryl Thornton, telling me about something that happened to the daughter of another alpha man, Marvin Richardson. His daughter, Rachel Richardson, she plays volleyball at Duke University. She's the only black starter. Well, they had a game on Friday in Bringham Young University, and she was repeatedly was called the N-word during this game. She's trying to focus on playing, she's trying to play the game, but they're yelling the N-word. And then there's an individual there who also then essentially threatened her by saying, in terms of what may happen if you go to the team bus. I then talked to her father, Marvin Richardson. He's a top official with the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms on a Saturday. And so I went live from the Bahamas. This story, her mother, Gloria, posted something on Facebook. Her godmother posted something on Twitter. This thing went all across the internet. People began to weigh in. Lebron James weighed in saying, Rachel, we stand with you. And so the next day, first of all, Duke University announced they were not going to play the next game. It was a two-day tournament on the campus. It was moved off campus. The athletic director actually came out and spoke to the audience at the game. Here's what he had to say, y'all.
For those who don't know me, my name is Tom Holmoe. I'm the athletic director at BYU. At last night's game, there were some egregious and hurtful slurs that were directed at members of the Duke University women's volleyball team. I'm the athletic director, and I'm accountable for what happens in all our athletic events. And with that in mind, the process to get better and to heal has already begun, as you can see, and you'll see a little bit more often. I want you to know that this morning I visited with the young athlete on Duke's team and her coach. If you would have met her, you would have loved her. But you don't know her, and so you don't feel that way. As children of God, we are responsible. It's our mission to love one another and treat everybody with respect. And that didn't happen. We fell very short. We didn't live up to our best. I ask that everyone at all of our games that represent BYU, that you will have the courage to take a stand and be able to take care of each other, and more importantly, the guests, our guests who we invite to come and play here, so that we can be disciples of Christ and show it in every way. I love how Cougar Nation, how The Rock, and all our fans are incredibly in support of our teams. Cheer them on as loud as you can, but do not cross the line where you would hurt or harm anyone in any way. Love you, Cougs. Thanks.
Pack that statement out. Very problematic. This was the press release that BYU posted before that. All of God's children deserve love and respect, and BYU athletics is completely committed to leading out in abandoning attitudes and actions of prejudice of any kind and rooting out racism. When a student athlete or a fan comes to a BYU sporting event, we expect that they will be treated with love and respect and feel safe on our campus. It is for this reason BYU has banned a fan who was identified by Duke during last night's volleyball match from all BYU athletic venues. Although this fan was sitting in BYU student section, this person is not a BYU student. To say we are extremely disheartened in the actions of a small number of fans in last night's volleyball match in the Smith Fieldhouse between BYU and Duke is not strong enough language. We will not tolerate behavior of this kind. Specifically, the use of a racial slur at any of our athletic events is absolutely unacceptable, and BYU athletics holds a zero-tolerance approach to this behavior. We wholeheartedly apologize to Duke University and especially its student athletes competing last night for what they experienced. We want BYU athletic events to provide a safe environment for all, and there is no place for behaviors like this in our venues. This is the statement that came from the Duke University president as a result of this particular event. The Duke president said, "I am outraged by the racist slurs and taunts directed at members of our volleyball team at BYU this weekend. Duke is fully committed to providing a safe, inclusive environment for competition, and we will not tolerate any racism or harassment of our student athletes, coaches, staff, or fans. As Vice President and Director of Athletics Nina King noted yesterday, our primary concern is for the safety and well-being of our student athletes and coaches. I have expressed to Coach Nagel and her team that they have Duke's and my full support, and we will be working with them in the days and weeks ahead to provide any assistance and resources they may need. I'm grateful for the leadership demonstrated by Duke volleyball's players, coaches, and staff, and I'm proud to call them members of our university community. And I call upon all of us here at Duke and in the wider sports community to continue our work toward inclusion and stand together against racism and all forms of hate. Vincent E. Price, president of Duke University. Now, Rachel Richardson is the player in question. She actually issued her own statement on Twitter, a very strong statement. I now want to show you that as well before I talk to her father, Marvin Richardson. This is what Rachel said in her own words that she posted yesterday on social media. She said, "Hello, my name is Rachel Richardson. I'm a sophomore on the Duke University women's volleyball team. Friday night in our match against Bringham Young University, my fellow African-American teammates and I were targeted and racially heckled throughout the entirety of the match. The slurs and comments grew into threats, which caused us to feel unsafe. Both the officials and BYU coaching staff were made aware of the incident during the game, but failed to take the necessary steps to stop the unacceptable behavior and create a safe environment. As a result, my teammates and I had to struggle just to get through the rest of the game instead of just being able to focus on our playing so that we could compete at the highest level possible. They also failed to adequately address the situation immediately following the game when it was brought to their attention again. No athlete, regardless of their race, should ever be subject to such hostile conditions. God has called each of us to be members of one body. While we may have our differences, they should never divide us. Romans 12:4-5. That said, I do not believe this is in any way a reflection of what the BYU athletes stand for. The girls on the team played a great game and showed nothing but respect and good sportsmanship on and off the court. Once notified, the BYU athletic director, Tom Holmoe, was quick to act in a very respectful and genuine manner. He is at the forefront of ensuring that the BYU athletic staff and players undergo education and training to better handle and prevent the racist, ignorant, and asinine behaviors they were exhibited by their fans during the match. It is neither my nor Duke volleyball's goal to call BYU's athletics out, but rather to call them up. This is not the first time this has happened in college athletics, and sadly, it likely will not be the last time. However, each time it happens, we as student athletes, coaches, fans, and administrators have a chance to educate those who act in hateful ways. This is an opportunity to dig deep into the closed cultures which tolerate amoral racist acts, such as those exhibited Friday night, and change them for the better. It is not enough to indicate that you are not racist. Instead, you must demonstrate that you are anti-racist. My team and I were fortunate enough to go through a long talk, which is an educational series on the roots of racism and how to be an activist in not just dealing with racism, but preventing and ending it. This helped to equip us to deal with the situation in a mature manner rather than to react in a retaliatory manner. I want to express my gratitude to the Duke Athletics Administration for being quick to act on my team's behalf. Additionally, I'd like to thank my coaching staff and teammates for immediately dealing with the situation and to the best of their ability the minute they were made aware of it. Further, I would like to thank anyone who has reached out to make me aware that you stand with us. Finally, I understand some people would have liked more to happen in the moment, such as an immediate protest and refusal to play on. Although the heckling eventually took a mental toll on me, I refused to allow it to stop me from doing what I love to do and what I came to BYU to do, which was to play volleyball. I refused to allow those racist bigots to feel any degree of satisfaction from thinking that their comments had, quote, gotten to me. So I pushed through and finished the game. Therefore, on behalf of my African-American teammates and I, we do not want to receive pity or to be looked at as helpless. We do not feel as though we are victims of some tragic, unavoidable event. We are proud to be young African-American women. We are proud to be Duke student athletes. And we are proud to stand up against racism that is signed by Rachel Richardson. Joining me now is Marvin Richardson. He is the, let me know, because I know that was a confirmation hearing. Are you still the acting director of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, Marvin?
No, I'm not. I have reverted to my position as Deputy Director and Chief Operating Officer.
All right, so you're the number 2 at the ATF. I had the pleasure, of course, speaking to the ATF a couple of times, and I always appreciated being there. And, of course, you and I belong to the illustrious fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. So I'm glad to have you here. But before that's right. Before we get into it, I got to ask you, I mean, you got to be proud. We talked on Saturday. You said, my daughter's no shrinking violet. You got to be proud of that statement she put out right there in her own words.
So, yeah, I really can't say enough, about the young woman that Rachel is. She's a leader in her own right. She stands up for what she believes in, and that's who she is.
It was interesting. Like I got this, text. Daryl Thornton I think sent to my wife on Facebook. He said, "Hey, we're trying to reach Brother Martin, I'm there on vacation. Went to go play golf. I came back. You and I talked, and this theme began to grow and grow. And you said something to me that still stands out. You said, and I mentioned this when I went live. You said that first of all, that this man, he didn't just yell the N-word. He said all blacks can go to hell. And if you heard the AD and even that statement, they said, "Oh, we banned this man," but your daughter said there were others who were using the N-word. This wasn't one guy, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So I appreciate again. They made a statement and they indicated that an individual was banned. But when Rachel was serving, she's like about 2 feet away from the students' end. When you're on that end of the court, and you can see that. I mean, so what she's hearing every time she goes back there to serve. And it's not just from one individual. It's multiple individuals. And unfortunately, they use that crowd out of their own cowardice to hide, because that's what racists do nowadays, right? I mean, they try to be covert, right? There was a time in this country when, and they still are, times when they're very overt. But here, we see an opportunity for the cowards to hide and to be covert in their response.
See, that's why I was really so upset when I saw that video from the administrator. He doesn't mention racism. He doesn't mention any of this. Oh, if y'all knew her, you would love her. No, you don't have to know her. You don't have to know her to treat her with respect. And then to say, oh, we took the guy out. No, he should have said, if you are sitting next to a fan and they are hurling the N-word at an opposing player and abusing them, you should stand up. And essentially what your daughter said is learn to be an anti-racist.
Right. 100% correct. Silence is tacit approval, right? I mean, you might as well be agreeing. I know it's hard, right? It's hard, and especially young people stand up. But everyone has an opportunity. Now, whether or not you choose to take advantage of that opportunity to stand up and let your voice be heard, then that's a whole other story. But the hard things in life are the things that we have to do. And that's what we taught Rachel, is that, it's hard to do the right thing sometimes. But you got to stand up and do that right thing if you ever want things to get better. And so, again, I'm really proud of the fact that she said, no, Dad, I'm not going to stand by and let this be swept under the rug, So that's why I'm standing here with and for her this evening. She has obviously spoken on her own, and we will continue to speak and to call out racism anywhere we see it. And we all have that responsibility. We can't allow that to exist, right? It always wants to hide in the dark, but we got to shine the light on it so that it cannot hide, and you got to call it out for what it is.
One of the things, the athletic director, go to my iPad, please. If you see it, actually, hold up one second. I don't think we have it up. Let me try to connect it. I found something interesting, because when you and I talked, you said that Rachel made it clear that she wanted to speak the next day with the athletic director as well as the head coach. Yet when they met, it was just the AD. The head coach wasn't there. The AD posted this on social media. He said that he stands with the coach in difficult times. He said that he made the decision to represent BYU at the meeting with Rachel on Saturday morning. And then the coach, she sent out a particular statement right here as well. Yet when you and I talked, you said that the Duke captain went up to her after the game and said, you should have done something. And her response was, what could I have done? And I tell you what she could have done. She could have went over to the scores table and said, pass me the microphone. She could have, right there, she could have said, This young lady's being called the N-word. She could have said something in the moment. And I know people sitting here saying, oh, you shouldn't call her out. I call for her immediate suspension because of her actions. And people are like, oh, that's unfair. No, you don't sit here and push it off. Because you also told me that after they said it, they sent a cop to stand by the Duke bench, which meant they were aware of the threats.
Yeah, so they did. Yeah, right. So the police officer was sent down to the student end where the students were seated, right? But again, what did that do? In that moment, you just said it, right? I've been at many sporting events, and sometimes you love a raucous crowd, right? That's what you want at a sporting event. But there is a line, right? And I've seen coaches do exactly what you just said. When that crowd gets out of control and crosses or starts to cross that line, I've seen coaches go take that mic and in the moment say, you either knock it off or I'm going to have you removed from here. And that in and of itself is indicating that you do not condone that kind of behavior, and you will not condone that kind of behavior. And that's what you have to do while it's happening, right? That's the best time to send the message, and then you follow up with it, right? But here, that didn't happen. That could just be my opinion about how it should have been handled. But the bottom line is, I don't think enough was done in the moment to give these young student athletes an opportunity to compete in an environment where they didn't have to focus or be worried about what was going on behind or around them, and especially not in that kind of an environment where you're having racial slurs thrown at you.
You said, quote, my daughter, when you said that it's for you to be in law enforcement. It was tough. Here you are thousands of miles away. You said when your daughter called me, my daughter was afraid last night. She was in tears. That is the one thing a mother and a father does not want to hear when their child is playing in a sporting event and they're thousands of miles away.
Yeah, no question. And I mean, the first thing you feel is guilt, right? But I mean, you get through that, right? Because you can't be everywhere. And we, Rachel's been playing volleyball since she was 10 years old. We have 3 other daughters who have all played volleyball. So for 3 decades, we've been a volleyball family. If I'm honest with you, Roland, the headline, we shouldn't even be having this conversation, right?
Right.
The headline should be BYU Volleyball hosts largest crowd in volleyball program history. Man, that's such a statement for Title IX and where women's athletics has come over there. We were actually sitting here watching it on television, and you couldn't see everything that was happening right in the periphery there. But we're watching it, and we're sitting here going, man, we remember when we were young parents, taking our children to volleyball, and you'd have a handful of parents and 3 or 4 people you could drag off the street to bring into a gym to say, hey, come in here and watch this game. Here we are, 50 years after Title IX, and women's sports are starting to rival the crowds that men's. That's what this should be about, right? But it only takes a few ignorant people, to take something that should be good and taint the whole thing, right? Because I don't want to blanket that whole crowd as if everyone was doing it. Now, I will say this, though. For those who were in proximity, who heard it, you had a duty to stand up and say, hey, you got to stop that, right? And that's hard, again, and I understand these are young people, right? But you know what? We all have to do hard things in life, and we have to make those decisions to stand up and do those hard things at the right time. Right thing, right reason.
So y'all were watching the game.
Yeah.
So you're watching the game having no idea what your daughter was enduring.
No, because, and remember, when you're watching a sporting event, the camera is on the game.
Right.
And you can't hear, the crowd is loud, and that's great. Like I said, man, you love, that home crowd was supporting their home team, and they should, 100%. But when that support crosses a line and devolves to the point that this one did, that's when adults in the room had a duty to stand up and take control of that situation and stop it.
A lot of folks have been asking this question, and I would love to know, what did Duke folks say? Folks, if your daughter addressed it as well, but they said, what did Duke do? Why didn't Duke pull the players off the court? You've already talked to BYU folks, you talked to the Duke folks as well. What did they say to you, and how they're going to try to handle this stuff in the future?
So excellent. One of the things that I'm doing this Friday, I'm actually going down to Duke University. Rachel has they have their first home tournament. And so I'm going there and I'm having a meeting with the administrative staff there at the athletics department. And we're going to talk about that, because could more have been done? Yes. Now, here's what I don't expect to have been done, right? What I didn't expect was for the Duke coach to go and take the mic and say something to the BYU fans. That would have done absolutely nothing, right? She has no influence there. However, the BYU coach, different story, right? So, but for Duke and for me and for my peace of mind and my family's peace of mind, Duke is, they have care of my daughter when she's away on those trips. And what I want to make sure of is that they are going to take the steps that are necessary. And I don't know, that may be, when I say necessary, that may be situational depending on what's going on. But I want to make sure that they are taking the necessary steps to ensure that, first, she is safe, and that, second, she is afforded an opportunity to play in a venue that is free of that kind of hostility. So those are the conversations that I plan on having with them when I'm there coming up this Friday.
There are a lot of folks have been reaching out. As I said, LeBron James, he posted a tweet. If y'all have that, go ahead and show that. And others as well. We've had sports columnists writing columns. This has been talked about by a lot of folks. I take it your phone has been blowing up from folks who offering their support in this time.
Definitely, and again, that's the difference, right, bro? I go back to when I grew up, I grew up in desegregation in the South there, and in North Texas and the Dallas-Fort Worth area, man. And back then, obviously things were so overt, right? I mean, and there wasn't a lot you could do about it other than you just had to suck it up, keep it moving, right? Because what we didn't have is what we're doing right now. We didn't have the platforms or the opportunities to call this thing out, to shine the light on it, and to take a stand to say, not only no, are we not going to accept this, or we're going to call it out for what it is. We're not going to let it be swept under the rug. And so I think that when you talk about this generation, the hope that I have moving forward is that this generation will continue to use the tools and the technology and the platforms that they have to be able to call this thing out. Do I think we're going to eradicate it with this instance, with this incident? No, racism is alive and well in this country, unfortunately, and this isn't going to be the incident that's going to eradicate it. But we must take every opportunity to address it whenever it rears its ugly head, and we cannot let ignorance have a pass. We got to call it out for what it is every time we see it and ensure that it's not allowed to fester and grow. And I think that until we start doing that all together, it doesn't have to be one individual. We can all do it together.
This was the tweet LeBron James sent to Lisa Pamplin. Tell your goddaughter to stand tall, be proud, and continue to be black. We are a brotherhood and sisterhood. We have her back. This is not sports. Hashtag strive for greatness. Hashtag more than a volleyball player. I don't know. You can let us know. Has LeBron reached your daughter?
So I don't believe that they have spoken directly, but I will.
Well, just know I did send an email to the NBA commissioner as well as the deputy commissioner, Mark Tatum. He's a Kappa, but forgive him, saying I will definitely connect him, and as well as some other players who knows LeBron. But go ahead.
Yeah, no, she did have an opportunity, though, and some of her friends, right, young men who played on the Duke volleyball team or on the Duke basketball team last year. Guys that went in the first round in the draft, called her, reached out for her, touched her. I think she'd heard from guys like Kyrie Irving and some other guys. That kind of support has helped her, to get back and kind of, she was overwhelmed over the weekend, no question. And today was the first day of class. So, she was really having to deal with a whole lot. But that helped her to know that she has that kind of support. And interestingly, as well. I want to give props to the Ryder volleyball team who agreed to play the third game of a tournament, which they traveled over 2,000 miles to go and play. Right, this is one of the biggest, a big preseason tournament. You're playing the number 10 team in the country, and that's what you want to do. You want to play the best competition. Well, they agreed to play at that off-site location at a high school. They went 2,000 miles, not to just play at a high school in Provo, Utah, with no fans, but they did. So I want to give them some props. And the other thing they did, which really, for me as a dad, it really it warmed my heart. They wrote the number 3 on their shoulder and played the game in support of Rachel with the number 3 on their shoulder. Now, we won that game, and I appreciate that. But I appreciate the fact that, those young ladies took a stand and said, hey, you know what, we don't want to go back there either.
Well, when you and I talked on Saturday, when you talked about having the platforms, this type of story is precisely why this was created. I could have easily said, look, I'm coming home Sunday. I'll deal with this on Monday. But I wanted to go live right then. People responded. We probably had almost 200,000 views of just that particular video. But this is why Black-owned media matters. This is why I keep telling our people when we have to support our own institutions, because I didn't want to wait to CNN or MSNBC got around to doing the story. I want to be able to share with folks. This is why when we tell our own story and control the narrative, and then that's why it was so funny, because the next day people start posting all this stuff. Well, the BYU AD said, I said, I talked to her daddy yesterday. I said, y'all can try to come back 48 hours later trying to somehow flip and spin this thing. I said, no. I talked to her daddy yesterday. But that's why having our platforms to come in again, I'm sure other national media's reached out and they probably will spend 5 or 7 minutes discussing this. We've been talking for 30 minutes. That's why it matters. When we have our own, we can have our own story and share it with the public.
And I appreciate you, brother, no question, for the opportunity, right? Because when it happened, the first thing I did was I said, you know what, we can't let this just get swept on the rug. And the first name that came into my mind was, you know what, I need to get in touch with Roland just because, number one, because I know you. I know that you will speak the truth about the issue, and I think that was important, right? Because I think I told you, the first thing, I felt guilty for not being there for her to make sure that she knew that she was safe. But what I wasn't going to do was stand by and let this just kind of go by without making sure that the light got shined on. And I knew that you would help shine that light, and I appreciate that, because let's face it again, if we don't take the time to call these things out, who will? So if not us, then who?
That's right. Well, that's why that mural exists in that office from the Freedom's Journal, the first black newspaper, where they wrote March 16th, 1827, we wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. And so I'm glad to see you speaking for Rachel speaking for herself, and I'm glad to see the people holding BYU and Duke and the NCAA accountable for saying this should not be happening in 2022. There were racial incidents. You told me about one when our frat brother Daryl Thornton, when they went to BYU in 1980, where they threw eggs and tomatoes at them and they heard racial slurs. And so we call it out then, we call it out now to demand better.
Appreciate it, definitely. Thank you so much.
Give our best to your wife, Gloria, your other daughters, as well as Rachel, and we'll keep covering this story to its conclusion. Marvin, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Roland. Take care.
Appreciate it, Brad. Thank you very much. Pull up our panelists, Omakongo, Renita, as well as Julian. And this is the thing that, Julian, you've been a college president. This is where leadership leads. And this is where, and I don't care what the BYU athletic director said. First of all, that statement he gave was weak as hell to that crowd. Okay, he should have said a black player was called the N-word by fans at this game, and that is unacceptable. He couldn't even say that. He couldn't even mention racism. It was as saccharine as possible. Oh, I don't want to sit here and offend people. No, you got to get in folks' face and say, we ain't tolerating that. That's real allyship.
Absolutely. I mean, I think this man, by not calling out racism, by not calling out this was a racial slur, he basically not only showed no leadership, but he acquiesced to the BS that those rowdy folks, students, and it wasn't just one. He said, we expelled one fan. Need to be expelled in a whole section of them. I think that BYU is beyond wrong, but I also think that Duke could have done something different. No, they couldn't take the mic, as your frat brother said, they couldn't take the mic and interrupt play, but they could have done something quite emphatic. In fact, the president of Duke should have reached out to the president of BYU and said, our students were disrespected at your school. What are you going to do about it? And that's the issue. What are you going to do about it? That dad has to be so proud of his daughter. I mean, such dignity and such a well-written statement. But at the same time, as he said, this stuff happens all the time, and too many black people are uncomfortable with confronting systematic racism. We want to play nice with the devil, and it doesn't work.
You know, the thing here on Mokongo that, again, is silly to me, Rachel requested to speak to the AD and the head coach. Head coach didn't show up. The BYU volleyball head coach didn't show up. And so the AD said, well, I chose to represent. Well, then you should have told Rachel that the head coach is not going to be here. No, if the black player who got called, and what Marvin told me was, he said Rachel wanted to express to them directly how she felt during that game. The coach should have had her ass sitting there in that office at that meeting.
Period, bottom line. This was a failure of leadership on every single level. With my organization, I called it Upstander International because I talk about the importance of being an upstander and not a bystander. And that coach who didn't want to show up was a bystander, period, bottom line. And I commend her so much for what she did. My daughter's a freshman in high school and just made the volleyball team. So this is like a personal, seeing this story. And when I think about what happened, really at the end of the day, I'm thinking about the parents who are in that audience who heard this stuff happening. I am thinking about those coaches. I'm thinking about those players and everything. Really, at the end of the day, this represents the culture of a community. And this actually connects to our last segment, Roland, because we were talking about semi-fascists and all of that. This is how it starts. When people say stuff, throw out slurs and throw out these things, and they don't get challenged. And these guys become the politicians, the teachers, the leaders, and so on and so forth. They need to be challenged and metaphorically hit in the mouth when those things happen. Let's be mindful of the fact the police, from what I understand from the story that you sent us, Roland, the police officer was not put by the bench because of the racial slurs, but because that same guy said to watch your back. So we're talking about an actual possible threat of actual violence to be done. And that continued to happen because nothing was done in the beginning. And so those BYU players should have challenged it. And look, I commend everything the Duke players did. But this is not the 60s, right? We celebrated Bill Russell and so many of these other brothers and women who had to play through these different times, and we get it. But nowadays, if those Duke players decided to walk off the court, this country would have had their back. The world would have had their back. And so everybody has the ability to stand up and challenge this ignorance and hate. All of this lies on BYU, but those players who are on the Duke team as well, walk off. We throw out guys from NBA games, right? If they say something snide to a player or disrespect somebody's wife. When Russell Westbrook got into that argument with a player, with a fan, they got rid of him and banned. They throw these guys out for less. And they need to do more to protect our sisters in these venues and all athletes, because it's only going to get worse if it doesn't go unchecked. So I commend the dad. I commend Rachel. I commend what's happened. But you said more could have been done. In that BYU community, you had the light shown on you and you showed who you truly are. You need to do better, and the world is watching.
And bottom line, Renita, as I said, BYU wants to make this about one guy. No. Multiple fans use racist language. And you mean tell me ain't no video? Ain't no audio?
You hit the nail on the head. It's not just one person. BYU is a Mormon university, and if you know anything about the Mormon religion, it's public knowledge that they run a whisper campaign that anybody with darker skin is inherently evil and pretty much has no shot of going to heaven. So if you look at demographics of BYU, less than 1% of the people who attend that university are Mormon. So what I'm saying is BYU has got to do more than just say we're committed to ending racism at BYU. We're committed. Racism has no place here. Yes, it does. And you're going to have to do the hard work to really try to, if you want to separate yourself from what the Mormon religion has been. I mean, that's just what it is. So my guess is they've got more work to do than even other universities.
All right, folks, back to our Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
Oh, no punches!
I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay Black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, there's a difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig?